Picture a child, maybe 8, maybe 10, learning that the fastest way to make a room feel safe is to smile. Not because they're okay, but because if they smile, everyone else relaxes. And a relaxed room feels safer than an upset one. That child didn't learn manipulation. They learned survival. And 20 years later, they're very good at smiling and very tired. Welcome back to the Weekly Fix. I'm John, a licensed social worker and therapist. And every week we explore one song, one emotional theme, and one clinical breakdown. And this week we're talking about Taylor Swift's Eldest Daughter. Taylor Swift released Eldest Daughter as track 5 on The Life of a Showgirl. And if you're familiar with Taylor Swift's music, which I'm not, but a Swiftie told me track 5 is usually where the emotional armor comes off. The most vulnerable song, the most honest song. And this one explores something that she describes as almost universal amongst eldest daughters. The pressure to become strong before you're ready. This episode is for the responsible one, the oldest child, the family fixer, the person everyone depends on, anyone who learned how to hold everything together, and especially anyone wondering, what am I when I'm not carrying everyone else? Before we talk about the words, let's talk about the sound. Because Eldest Daughter is built around pianos and acoustic guitar. No wall of production, no distractions, no armor. And that's important because the music mirrors the emotional experience. This song sounds like someone finally putting down a role they've been carrying for years. The song operates on 2 levels. The first is personal. It's about the experience of being a child who becomes responsible too early. The second is culture. It's about the pressure a lot of people feel to appear unaffected, unbothered, independent, strong, even when they're struggling. When this song was released, people from every background connected to it, not just Taylor Swift fans. Parents, siblings, caregivers, adults in their 50s and 60s. Because the eldest daughter experience isn't about birth order. It's about responsibility. It's about becoming the emotional adult before you were ready. This song is not just about pressure. It's about parentification. A pattern that begins when a child takes on emotional and practical responsibilities that exceed what they were developmentally prepared to carry. We talked about that on the Drake episode. What makes this song powerful is that it doesn't just describe the wound. It describes the entire journey. First comes the responsibility, then the armor, then the performance, then something unexpected, safety. And usually that pattern looks like parentification, which turns into armor, emotional self-reliance, perform strength, always appearing to be strong, a safe relationship, and learning to receive. This song is for people who may struggle to ask for help, minimize their own needs, feel guilty receiving support, feel anxious when someone genuinely cares for them. Not because they don't want to be loved, but because they're not used to it, right? One of the hardest parts of healing is realizing that safety can feel unfamiliar. Sometimes the nervous system becomes so accustomed to responsibility that rest feels uncomfortable. Support feels uncomfortable. Being cared for feels uncomfortable. Not because it's wrong, because it's new. Parentification occurs when that child is responsible for responsibilities that belongs to adults. Sometimes that means a caregiver. Sometimes that's emotional support. Sometimes conflict management. Sometimes becoming the family's emotional anchor. But the child adapts. They become capable, responsible, reliable, and even highly successful. But the cost is their own needs becoming difficult to identify. Over time, strength becomes identity. You stop asking, how do I feel? And start asking, what needs to be done? That's the armor. One of the most clinically interesting ideas in this song is the concept of feeling fundamentally different from everyone else. Not because you're special, because you've convinced yourself nobody could possibly understand. And if no one can understand, you don't have to ever risk being seen. There's something many people don't realize. If you grow up earning love through responsibility, unconditional care actually feels uncomfortable. The nervous system doesn't automatically recognize safety. It recognizes what's familiar. And sometimes chaos feels more familiar than peace. Whether you're an eldest daughter, oldest child, only child, or simply the person who became responsible too early, the pattern is often the same. You learn to survive by becoming dependable. But the question becomes, can you learn to receive? I want to leave you with one question this week. When did you first learn that being open wasn't safe? Take your time with that. A lot of people can trace the armor back to a moment, a relationship, an experience, a turning point. Here's the reframe. The armor worked. It protected you. It helped you survive. You don't need to hate it. You don't need to fight it. You simply need to recognize that the danger it built may no longer need to be there, may no longer need to exist. This week, think about one person in your life who consistently shows up for you. When they offer support, don't immediately redirect. Don't minimize. Don't change the subject. Just receive it. Even for a moment. That's where healing begins. At its core, Eldest Daughter is not a song about strength. It's a song about endurance. And endurance is not the same as being okay. The armor helped you survive. But survival and connection are not the same thing. Maybe the next chapter isn't about becoming stronger. Maybe it's about becoming reachable. This has been the Weekly Fix, and this week's fix was Taylor Swift's Eldest Daughter, and the psychology of parentification, emotional responsibility, and learning to put the armor down. If this frequency met you where you are today, follow the show and share it with someone who may need it. And remember, music is like medicine. Here's your fix. This week's intentional listenings: Olivia Dean, A Couple Minutes, for learning that emotional safety doesn't have to be earned. Janae Aiko, Born Tired, for the exhaustion hidden beneath competence. SZA, Drew Barrymore, for the fear of being fully seen. Brandy Carlisle, The Story, for honoring everything you've carried. Novo Amor, Anchor, for discovering that stillness can be safe. Be sure to click on the link in the description to check out all of our playlists on Spotify. The Frequency Fix is for educational and informational purposes only. This content does not constitute therapy, clinical advice, or a therapist-client relationship of any kind. If you are struggling, please connect with a licensed mental health professional in your area. If you're in crisis, call or text 988 for immediate support.